Hey, and welcome to another episode of AT Banter.
Wait. Banter.
Okay, that was terrible. That was terrible. You need to place the cowbell clearly better. Should we do it again?
All right, do it again.
This is the AT Banter Podcast, a balanced and entertaining look at assistive technology, accessibility, and its importance in people's lives. Join Rob Minot, Ryan Fleury, and Steve Barclay as they banter with people around the world about anything and everything regarding assistive technology and the disability community. Now, on with the show.
Hey, and welcome to another episode of AT Banter.
Banter.
That was better.
Hey.
Hey. I sound terrible today. I'm really phlegmy.
Yes, you sound like it.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not going good.
You need Buckley's.
My name is Rob Minot.
Hey, he's back.
Joining me today, Mr. Ryan Fleury.
Hey there.
And we're down one. Mr. Steve is not here.
Actually, we're down two.
What do you mean?
Well, Steve is not here because he's out sick again.
Right.
But you have recently had something bodily removed.
Oh, this is terrible. No, it wasn't removed. It was just put in its proper place. Yeah, it was
So
terrible.
welcome back.
Yeah, thank you. I had bilateral hernia surgery.
Yes. So Rob's been out. That's why there's been no show recently.
That's right. We missed a week for the first time in 2.5 years. We missed a week because I could not get my ass off my couch.
That's right. We gave him that week off.
Yeah, I thought I was so naive going in. Because I've only had one other major surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And this isn't even really a major surgery. It's actually a fairly standard procedure.
It's still invasive.
But it's invasive and it messes with your core. So, your abdominal, any sort of abdominal surgery is just really rough on the recovery because, your core, you can't sit up, you can't roll over. Like, everything hurts. Just everything hurts to do except lying on the couch and moaning with an ice pack on your groin. That's it. That's the only thing that kind of doesn't feel too bad. But so we're out a week.
But he's back.
But we're back. I'm back.
He's mobile.
Limped to the guitar dungeon today just for this. It's
right.
still a little sore, but 2 weeks out. But
yeah,
it's every day is getting a little better now.
Excellent.
The other thing I found about surgery too is that once you've had surgery, you just want to talk to everybody about your surgery, no matter how gross it is. I found that everybody I talk to they're like, "How are you?" And then I just completely go on like a 20-minute diatribe on completely describing everything that I've gone through in the past 2 weeks.
All right, everyone, send us your surgery stories. Rob wants to hear them.
It's true. It's fascinating. It's just like, let me tell you about my bandages. Okay, now let me tell you about my staples.
That's right.
It's really cool.
Yeah. Well, we've also got other news. We do.
What?
AT Banter has a new email address.
Oh, you want to announce this?
I think we should. It's time. It's up and running. It's working.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to let you, I'm going to turn the mics over to you and you can tell people about our new email address because it took us long enough to set up.
That's right. It almost took a week to get this new email address set up. You can still send email to atbanterpodcast@gmail.com. But our new email address is cowbell@atbanter.com. So any email going to the AT Banter podcast Gmail account is being forwarded to Cowbell. So we will get all email if they're still sending them to the original account.
There you go, folks.
But cowbell@atbanter.com.
It's very exciting news.
Wait.
We need to work on that.
I can't see, damn it. Steve's the cowbell expert.
It's true.
Yep.
All right. Well, so Ryan,
Rob,
what are we doing today now that we're here?
Today we are talking with Dr. Fernando Albertorio, who is the co-founder of the Sunu Band.
Yeah. So we're having the Sunu guys on again.
Yeah, we had them on almost a year ago this week talking about the Sunu Band and its functionality, and so we thought it was time to do a follow-up show.
Well, especially because they've got a new update that they've crammed a bunch of new features into the thing. So we thought we'd have them on again. All right, let's open with some news. An Ontario-based hockey team for people with special needs has been told that some of its players cannot participate in upcoming tournaments because they use assistive devices while on the ice. Jim Perkins launched the Capital City Condors 11 years ago to give players with developmental and physical challenges a chance to play Canada's favorite pastime. The controversy started last year when the organizers of a Kitchener, Ontario tournament informed the Condors that they had received a letter from the Ontario Hockey Federation saying that it ruled that certain players could not participate because they use assistive devices such as the K-Trainer, which helps players who otherwise can't stand upright on the ice. So for those people who aren't familiar with K-Trainer, it's essentially like a big sort of walker, I guess, that rolls on the ice, that has some straps that attaches to the player's shoulder that lets them sort of stand upright on the ice.
Right, and the story goes on and talks about how I think they're filing a human rights complaint, but it sounds to me like these teams have played multiple games together in the past.
They played for 11 years.
11 years.
In tournaments.
And now all of a sudden, the Ontario Hockey Federation is saying, oh no, this is in violation.
It seems weird.
Absolutely bizarre.
This is really weird. I really don't know what the Federation are thinking. Like, how do they think that this gives them an advantage, an unfair advantage over the other teams?
I think it has something to do with the insurance policy that the Ontario Hockey Federation probably has for their teams, or that the teams have to have for their players. I don't know, but I think it's related to insurance.
But that must mean that their insurance policy must have changed over the past year, and that's got to be what.
Or nobody's ever looked at it, and now it's just coming to the forefront. Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, it was very. It sounds like there's something missing to this story.
But it's really, makes it. Of course, it puts the team in an incredibly awkward position because, of course, they're not going to go to a tournament and bar some of their own players from playing.
Yeah,
especially because all these players. I'm sure it's such a thrill. It means so much to them to be able to play in the first place.
Well, there was an interview again in the story. If you click the video and listen to it, one of the coaches from the able-bodied teams has said they have no problems playing with the Condors. No problems at all. It's great. It makes it inclusive for everyone to get on the ice and play the game. It just sounds like this whole issue is very trivial, and the OHF is just making a mountain out of a molehill.
Well, hopefully they come to some sort of agreement because there is talk of a human rights complaint, which I think that is completely valid.
Sure.
This is ridiculous, and the people who are paying the price are these poor kids that all of a sudden are being told that they are, they can't play hockey.
And isn't there enough of that in society?
Absolutely. So a little bit frustrating. We'll have to keep an eye on this story and see how this shakes out.
Well, I wonder, the Canadian blind hockey. We have some friends that are on the Canadian, or that play blind hockey, and I should ask them because they've played against able-bodied teams and other disabled teams, and I wonder, is there issues related to insurance policies, or is it a provincial thing? Maybe Ontario's regulations are different than BC's, and vice versa. So we'll have to get somebody on to talk about that.
I was just going to say that you should reach out to this because honestly, this is an important issue. Inclusion. We've been fighting for inclusion for so long, and to actually have a team together where we can have people on it that are finally getting a chance to play in tournaments, to play hockey, and to all of a sudden have the rug pulled out from under them by some sort of BS bureaucracy is just frustrating beyond belief.
Yep, pencil pusher.
Yep.
Next one. Let's talk about Barbie. About time, Mattel. Okay. But good on you.
Yeah, Mattel has unveiled a new line of dolls, and included in this new line of dolls are 2 dolls with disabilities.
Right. So one of them is Barbie with a wheelchair.
Yep.
And the other one, I believe, was a Barbie with a removable prosthetic leg.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Oh, you know what?
What?
They've even included a wheelchair ramp in the Barbie Dream House.
Oh, nice. Excellent. So now we need Ken so he can push Barbie up the ramp.
Well, we need to get
or
Ken
a motorized,
or poor Ken. Talk about not being inclusive.
But hopefully other toy companies and manufacturers will take note of this and get on the bandwagon.
Well, the important part about this particular story, I think, is that it's a small gesture, but it's aimed at just the right demographic, because it's the kids in the next generation that need this message the most. That the idea of inclusion, the idea that people with disabilities are there. Well,
and it's changing our mentality. I was listening to a Microsoft AI, an accessibility podcast recently, and one of the speakers there, one of her quotes was, "It's not the wheelchair that makes your building inaccessible, it's the stairs."
Right.
And if we can start thinking that way, that people with disabilities have all the same rights and freedoms as any able-bodied person out there, and we start thinking about inclusion and accessibility from the very beginning, from the foundations, our world is going to be a much happier place.
That's right. If climate change doesn't kill us.
Well, that's the next generation's problem. We've already messed that up.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry, next generation here. Have some inclusive Barbie dolls.
That's right.
Sorry about the polar ice caps.
But, it's in the last couple of years, we're seeing a big push on inclusivity, accessibility. Even recently in the news, we're getting some new emojis.
Yep.
Showing disabilities, white canes, guide dogs, wheelchairs. It's happening. The world is starting to wake up.
Yeah, no, it is good. And again, all these may seem like small gestures, but they all add up. So good on Mattel for doing this.
Absolutely. Yep.
I love it. We finally got some good news. I feel like all the news that we've done in a lot of our shows lately are all bad news, but
yeah, they are. Oh, we have more news.
What?
Ryan has switched to an iPhone again. Woo! Goodbye, Android. You suck.
This makes no sense to me. This
Android
makes
doesn't
no
suck.
sense to me.
Because you're not blind.
You baffle me, sir. Okay, but anyways. Okay, well, this is big news, because I'm sure there are a few members of our audience that are jumping up and down for joy, because they're going to be like, good, now they won't be crapping on Apple every episode.
Well, no, Apple's still in the news. We're still going to crap on them because they make the headlines.
Okay, but why don't you tell people like what did make you switch? Because seriously, this is an issue.
It was an issue for me, and I finally got to the breaking point where I had to pull the trigger. So I started out with an iPhone 3GS and went to a 4. And then I thought, okay, Android's getting to the point where people are talking about accessibility and implementing accessibility, so I'm going to give it a shot. So back in 2014, I started out with my first Android phone, and I've been on Android ever since. And, for my uses, Android has been fine. I've had a Moto X, I've had a Samsung Galaxy S5, and my last phone was an LG G6. My biggest problem with my Android phones was that a lot of these system apps that come preloaded, like on LG's G6, I would get crashes almost daily where it would say System UI has stopped, or this program has stopped working and needs to close. And I'd reboot my phone and everything would be fine for another couple days. And that just got to the point where it's like, this never happened on my iPhone. And so the other issue I had was pretty much on all of my Android phones, I wasn't able to do a search for contacts. So I'd bring up the Contacts app, I would tap the search button, and my cursor wouldn't go in there, the keyboard wouldn't pop up, and I couldn't type. So unless I had to be on a certain area of the word search, sometimes I could double tap it and it would put me into the field, other times it wouldn't. So, I typically had to, I couldn't even navigate my contacts by headings. so I could switch the talkback navigation to headings. I could swipe left or down or whatever the gesture was, and it wouldn't do anything. So navigating through contacts was becoming a nightmare. And sure, I could use my voice to say, hey G, call so-and-so, and that was fine. But on my iOS device, now that I've gotten back to it, in my contacts, I can switch the rotor to headings, go swipe down, 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 it goes A, B, C, D, E, F, G, so on. I get to the one I want. I can just tap it and call, or I can type in the search box. The keyboard comes up. It just works. And maybe that's just because of the way Apple separates its apps from each other. Like I don't think Apple shares any of the app information with each other. I think Android shares a lot more information between apps. And maybe that's what was causing my crashes on Android. I'm not a big Braille user, but from other people I've spoken to, the Braille support on iOS is way ahead of Android. And you don't even hear Google talking about Braille back anymore. So I don't know what kind of development is being done on that side. But to me, there's a reason most of the blindness users out there are still on iOS. Sure, some have jumped boat and gone to Android, and maybe in time I'll go back as well. But I needed a phone that was stable, reliable, and just worked. And so I'm back on iOS.
Again, this comes back around to you went back to Apple because you knew that you would buy an Apple phone and it was going to be stable.
Yeah, it was going to work.
Dependable.
And
whereas with Android, an LG might not be as good as a Samsung, which might not be as good as a Pixel. Or
exactly.
It just is going to vary. That you pay for that choice that Android gives you.
And exactly. And I think that's one of the benefits of Android is you've got choice of phones and form factors.
But it can bite you in the ass.
It can bite you in the ass. And again, the other side of Android is that the release schedule for updates is dog slow. My LG G6 hasn't been updated in, I think it's still on Android Oreo, and Android, Pie is out now, and 10 is coming out this fall. So I'm never going to get those updates on my G6, and my G6 isn't even 2 years old.
Right.
So with iOS, I'm going to get updates more frequently. And again, the experience on an iPhone is a pure iPhone experience.
Right.
And maybe like I said, on a Pixel, I would have that same experience. None of the bloatware.
Well, listen, I respect that.
I have a phone that I can rely on. I can answer calls on. One of my biggest beefs on Android, and just thinking about this now, is that if a phone call came in on my G6, finding the answer button was never consistent. So I had it set up so that I could hit the volume up or the volume down button. That would stop the ring. It wouldn't hang up the call, but it would stop the ringing. And then I could use my finger and find the answer button on the phone, double tap it, and answer the call. Because I was missing so many calls on that phone because I couldn't find the answer button. On the iPhone, I just 2-finger double tap, boom, I've answered the call, I've ended the call. It's so much easier. And Android needs to get on that bandwagon, make answering a touchscreen device a lot easier. And maybe there's a way to do it. Maybe there's a third-party app that'll let you do it. I tried looking and didn't really find anything that worked the way I wanted it to. But, Android gives you the choice. You can go in and use apps like Tasker to go in and customize different things. But I was tired of doing that. I just wanted something that worked. So I'm back.
Now, have you set it all up?
Yep.
How was that process?
Very, very, very easy. There's definitely some new things to it, like Face ID. There's no home screen, no physical home button, on the iPhone XR, which is the device I got. So basically, you had to set up Face ID. And yeah, you just hold the phone up to your face. It goes click, you hear a camera snap, and you're unlocked. Swipe up from the bottom, you're on your home screen. Moving apps around the screens hasn't changed since my iPhone 3GS and my 4. So I got all my apps installed and into folders, and I created folders. All that has been the same. There's definitely some new things I need to get used to. They've got something called shortcuts now, which I'm kind of intrigued about, where you can have multiple things happen by activating a shortcut. But I'll get there. Right now, I've got what I need on there. I've got Seeing AI on my phone, which again, I've got a portable document reader now.
Well, it's good. We should actually talk about that a little bit on the show once you've gotten your feet wet with that, because we've been wanting to get our hands on it for a while.
Yeah, and again, that's another reason I went back to the iPhone, is because I wanted access to these apps that companies like Microsoft are releasing to iOS first, like Seeing AI, Soundscape. So yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, well, me too, because now we're gonna have a more of a balanced look at these different ecosystems. Like seriously,
Sure.
I think it's important. So you're the new Apple fanboy in the group.
I am. Woo! Go Apple.
Oh my god! You're gonna get people cowbell at atbanter.com. Everybody, flame this guy for being a hypocrite.
Hypocrite? No way. I gave Android 4 years of my life. I might go back, but for now, the next 2 I'm on iOS.
Hey Steve, why don't you tell the fine folks about Canadian Assistive Technology?
Well, Canadian Assistive Technology is a Canadian-based distributor of, guess what? Assistive technology.
I would not have guessed that.
Really? Oh, I got to work something better into the name then. And we do all kinds of low vision and blindness aids, as well as all kinds of physical access aids and accessible furniture. You name it. Visit our website at www.canastech.com.
Rick, let me ask you about this. Chaos Technical Services.
Chaos Technical Services.
Don't sound so excited about it. Woo! Speaking of repairs.
We are the sister company to Canastech. We do the repairs on low vision devices, reading machines, for libraries, braille printers, and pretty well anything in between. We can be found at www.chaostechnicalservices.com.
All right, so I want to welcome to the show Dr. Fernando Albertorio from Sunu.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being on AT Banter, and great meeting you guys.
Well, great. Well, listen, why don't we start out with just telling us a little bit about the Sunu Band for anybody who hasn't heard of it before, what the device is and what it can do.
Sure, absolutely. So at Sunu, we've been working on creating our product called the Sunu Band since 2012, and essentially the Sunu Band is the first sonar smartwatch. It's a mobility aid and navigation tool for blind and low vision pedestrians and travelers. What it means is that it uses sonar with echolocation to provide awareness and better perception of obstacles that are within the environment. The Sunu Band works as a complement to the white cane and the guide dog by extending awareness beyond what the cane can reach or the guide dog, meaning that it's going to improve awareness to obstacles that could hit your chest, your head, or your arms. Things like tree branches, signposts, as you're walking about, but also works indoors as well to improve awareness in those situations where sometimes, use of the white cane, isn't as best. For instance, when you're moving in a queue or in a line and you want to know when to move up, or navigating around barriers or banisters. There are various applications that our users have found for the Sunu Band. And as I mentioned, it's a smartwatch. So we extend on the applications around mobility to navigation, to providing support and orientation through our Compass app. So if you're walking north, south, east, or west, as well as identifying places that are around you with our Place Finder app. Our Place Finder app works with Google Maps, and allows you to explore the map using the Sunu Band to know about things that are in your surroundings. So you can find that coffee shop or restaurant that you're interested in checking out, discover new things that are around you.
Now, this uses what's called haptics, and there certainly are going to be people out there who don't actually know what the hell haptics is. Could you give us a quick rundown on what haptics is and how the Sunu Band incorporates it?
Absolutely. So haptics is basically the way we communicate, especially tactile communication with devices. The Sunu Band uses haptics to communicate how close or far we are to an object. The way that works is through vibration pulses that you feel on your wrist. As you feel more vibration pulses, that means that you're getting closer to an obstacle in your environment. Or if you feel less vibration pulses, then you're getting further away. And haptics allows you to do a lot more than that. You can tell the time through haptics. You can use haptics to know if you're going north or south through our Compass app. So we've been working on haptics since 2012, becoming really good at understanding how we can employ haptics to communicate useful information to blind and low vision travelers using our product, our Sunu Band, in a meaningful way.
Now, haptics have been around as mobility aids for a while. There's been a variety of different devices that have tried it in the past to varying degrees of success. Has it mainly been that the technology just hasn't quite been there before now, as the reason why haptics really hasn't taken off?
Well, that's a good question. What happened in the early days is that, since the 60s, we've been seeing a lot of travel aids being developed by researchers and inventors. And so the first ones that we saw were the MOAT sensors and other devices using sonar to act as like a clear path indicator, giving you, your information about obstacles that are nearby you as well. Think about the 60s, these technologies, these sensors were huge. They just came, they were developed, sonar was developed, further developed and improved upon after World War II. So putting these devices onto an actual person and even a blind and visually impaired person, took quite a bit of leaps in the technology. And in the 60s, we were developing the transistor, and that was still, those components were still large. What's happened today is the miniaturization of these sensors. And that's opened up a huge amount of opportunities for incorporating these into wearables. Mobile technologies allowed us to connect to devices with smartphones, and what the exciting thing is the miniaturization. That now you have more power on a chip to do a lot more processing. And that's what we incorporate on the Sunu Band. The physics remains the same. The way the sonar works, exactly the same since the 60s. What we do is we improve upon that by adding electronics and adding more computational power to the device to provide better information to the user. For instance, detecting corners, being able to detect those edges. Is something that we can do with sonar technology, and in fact, as Leslie Kay showed with her devices, you can actually know the type of object, distinguish between a human or say a tree or a glass door. These are the exciting potentials that you can do with echolocation with the sonar, but now we have the ability to link it up to a computer that's in your pocket, which is your smartphone.
Right.
And this is the uniqueness of Sunu, is that we can connect our device to the smartphone and leverage its computing power to give you information about places that are around you, to help you navigate to a particular place of interest, as well as provide you updates to improve the device. It used to be you buy it, you get an electronic travel aid, and that's what you brought. And it doesn't evolve with you. The Sunu Band actually evolves with you because we're constantly updating it, we're constantly improving the functionalities, and we're obviously adding applications, new features to the device.
Have you found in getting feedback from your user groups that it can be kind of distracting if you've got, you're listening or getting the tactile feedback from your cane, or you're giving your dog commands? You may have your GPS playing in your bone conduction headphones, and then you've also got your wrist vibrating. What has kind of the feedback been from your user groups on the Sunu Band and its, haptic feedback?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, some people actually take to it differently than other users, and so there's also a bit of a learning curve with haptics, understanding how we can transmit that information to the individual that is using it in a real-time settings. In other words, they're walking about, they're getting sensations about the environment. And so one of the first things that we want to be clear is that, we try to make the technology non-obtrusive to the other senses. We don't want to interfere with the sense of hearing. We're using that all the time when we're walking about. And so with the haptic vibrations, we want to make them as simple and as intuitive as possible. So some of our users categorize Sunu Band as like an extension of their senses. They tell me that I'm using it. I may not be even paying attention to the pulses that I feel until they reach a certain level. That's when I become alert, and that's when I know I need to pay attention. And then pay attention to my Sunu Band, and then obviously navigate around that obstacle. When it comes to learning how to tell time or utilize some of the other functions of the device, again, it depends on how users are employing it in their particular scenarios. And what I mean by that is, for instance, I, as a low vision traveler, I like using the Sunu Band to know exactly what's across the street. So I will go into my place finder, and I will activate that app, and I'll simply point around and then try to identify, where's the Starbucks, so I can grab a cup of coffee, or the train station if I need to jump on a train. And it's been super helpful. I could use my phone and pull it out, but what it enables me to do is receive that info via audio through my Bluetooth headset, and I can interact with Google Maps in a hands-free way.
And so what is the range of detection on the sonar?
Yeah, the range of detection is 16 feet. We have two sonar modes. The first mode is what we call the outdoor mode. So that gives you 16 feet of range in front of you, high sensitivity to detect tree branches, limbs, bushes, things that you would encounter outdoors. And then the second mode is our indoor mode. That gives you 4 to 5 feet, about 1.5 meters detection range, and then a lower sensitivity, a narrower beam, so that it's optimal for catching corners, gaps, and doorways. All of these, you can adjust them via our mobile app. So within the app, you can actually tune the range and adjust it to your liking.
And the app is available on both iOS and Android.
Yeah, so since the last time we chatted on AT Banter, we've released the app for Android. We're excited. We did a beta run last year, some testing, and then we redid the app towards the end of the year, so it's now available with the same functionalities as the iOS app.
Hooray!
Yeah, we're very excited about that.
The question on everybody's lips is, will it work underwater?
Will it work underwater?
Yeah, if I want to take up snorkeling or scuba diving, will it detect objects in front of me?
I don't think that was on everybody's lips at all, but we'll let Fernando answer. I'm curious now.
Actually, so no, we don't recommend that you go swimming or snorkeling with the Sunu Band. Even though sonar, the perfect medium for sonar is water, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's where
Exactly.
it was invented. We don't have the waterproof, type of sonar on the Sunu Band. Our medium is air. So that said, the Sunu Band is water resistant. You can use it in a light rain, or if it's snowing. In fact, I use it in Boston all the time, especially in the winter, because of those tree branches that hang low because of the ice.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm using it all the time in sometimes humid weather. And if it just becomes wet for any reason, you just let the sonar sensor dry out, and then it should work again fine.
Well, maybe that's something you can have for version 2, is you can make it completely waterproof, so you can go swimming and detect Russian subs as you're
sharks as
snorkeling.
well.
Yes. Well, let's talk a little bit about echolocation. Was that always originally a part of the plan, and why did you guys go sort of that route?
That's a great question. So originally what happened, when Sunu had its beginnings, my two colleagues, Marco Trujillo and Quali Padilla, Marco and Quali were doing a community service project at a school for blind children in Guadalajara. Now, Marco and Quali are both engineers and avid inventors, and they had created other type of enabling technologies that they competed in hackathons and other competitions. And it wasn't until they came to the school and they started observing how children would play, and they noticed that as children who get older, they become more and more sedentary. The younger ones were fearless. They would run around and they wouldn't mind if they had accidents or bumps along the way. And they also noticed how orientation and mobility was happening for them. Even though they struggled a lot, they always look forward to their Thursday orientation and mobility lesson. So Marco and Carly tagged along. They learned a lot and observed the children during those lessons and during play. And they brought in one of their devices that they had. And it actually had a sonar sensor and some vibrating motors and cables all over the place. And they showed it to the kids, and the children started playing around with it and immediately wanting to like do makeshift mazes. They were wanting to take it out in O&M. They were, in fact, using it with their instructor during O&M training. And that, after some time, it caught the attention of the teachers. And within a month or so, that caught the attention of teachers and the parents, and other people in the school were like, we want to crowdfund this. We want to learn more. And that's kind of what got Mark and Quali in that journey. You could use other type of sensors. Sonar, the initial thinking was it's low power, it's miniaturized. Having other sensors could consume more power, could have more noise. And again, haptics being a new thing, they were really interested in exploring that whole world of haptics, how we communicate a lot of information to an individual in real time, and yet make it useful for navigating an environment.
Yeah, that's interesting. The psychology of haptics is kind of interesting to me. How much research did you guys have to do in order to come up with, the perfect method on conveying the most information in the most intuitive way?
Well, we're always doing research, and we're always working with our users, not just our people in our community who are using the Sunu Band, but also experts alike. So we did a lot of research, a lot of iterations of the Sunu Band since 2012, when it first started at the school. But we've worked with the National Federation of the Blind and their Jernigan Center in Baltimore, received a lot of useful feedback. We've iterated the device over 7 different times throughout its course, and before going into our public beta with the Sunu Band. When we think about haptics and how people would internalize that, how they learn what these haptic syntax means. Haptics is actually a pretty complex subject. It involves a lot of neuroscience and behavioral science as well. Thinking how we interface with these devices and how we can get more communications from them. Right now, if we think about haptics in the commercial space or in commercial electronics, your cell phone uses haptics, your Xbox controller uses haptics, they vibrate. And in the case of your phone, you get a message, it vibrates, you pull out your phone and you hear the message. It's very binary, right? You got a message or you don't have a message. What we're trying to do with Sunu is we're trying to relay spatial information, orientation, so that you can target, so that you can get orientation, and then hopefully the next level is so you can start making some spatial maps in your mind to understand what are the things that are around you, what are the how do I navigate this unknown area so that I can not just get to point B, but also do it in a way that it's enjoyable.
Now, the Sunu Band sits on the wrist. Was that always the original design? And what is it about the placement of it on the wrist that is the most ideal spot for it?
Great question. So it started as a wrist-worn device. When Kali and Marco first came about the idea and saw the initial reaction of kids and how they would take to it, the idea of having it on a wrist was very unique, because when we look at ETAs, they've either been handheld, they've either been worn on the head or worn around the neck, and yet a lot of the reasons for the poor adoption is, as well as the learning curve, is people who are visually impaired don't want to look foolish. If you make a survey of folks, that's one of the top answers. People are concerned about how they look, the perception
Right.
of themselves in public. the idea of having a wrist-worn device now opened up the doors for making something that looks stylish, that looks like a smartwatch, and that lowered that social pressure of the stigma. We have a lot of users who are low vision, who still have some functional vision. They resist using the white cane because they don't want to be using that for some reason or whatever personal reasons they have. And yet, if the studio band can then provide them with that extra awareness and that extra confidence, then that's great, because I mean, like, it'll get them out of the house.
Yeah. So on average, how much training would you suggest somebody take to get familiar with the Sunu Band and its functions?
Good question. I mean, training is a very important part of our product, and we certainly are continue to put in a lot of effort into training. It varies person to person, but first of all, getting familiar with the operation of the device. Our Sunu Band, has a lot of multifunctional buttons. There's 2 of them, but yet each of these buttons do a couple tasks. So getting familiar with the device should take you about 10 to 15 minutes to learn those functions really quickly. We do that through online tutorials. Our mobile app has a training, and we're trying to make that interactive. And then getting to use the device in mobility scenarios and understanding how it relates to mobility and how to interpret that feedback. We recommend, going through our tutorials that are available online and taking it step by step. Starting, you can learn how to use Sunu Band and understand the vibration feedback by standing in one place and understand what this vibration means when there's an obstacle nearby, or what it means when you get closer and closer to like a wall, for instance. And we have tutorials online that will walk you through that. And then it's essentially learning at your pace. Once you get the fundamentals down of what this means, what the haptic vibrations mean, then it's a matter of exploring. Maybe you can work with it with an O&M or with a sighted companion, and then understanding, okay, maybe it's not useful for me in this scenario, but maybe there's a scenario that it's really important for me. For instance, like navigating a line at the Starbucks or at the bank. Or maybe it's in my neighborhood where there's tree branches, and in my case, I have to deal with that a lot. So that's my scenario, and that's my most important use of the Sunu Band, is understanding where those tree branches are so that I don't get scraped in the head.
Right.
So there's a bit of self-exploration there with the Sunu Band. And we continue to work with guides that have been prepared by Daniel Kish and his team at World Access for the Blind.
Right.
We continue to provide that material, and we're going to find ways that we can do that more interactively so that we can speed up that learning curve.
Now, we talked a little bit earlier about how the Sunu Band is expandable, how you guys are continuing to put more and more features into it. And I understand that you guys have just recently have done a big update. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the updated features that you guys have just put in the new firmware?
Yeah, so since the last year that we were on AT Banter, we've done quite a lot in terms of firmware advancements and our mobile app. Again, releasing the app for Android now. Within the device now, we have apps that one of them is the Sunu Voice services. So Sunu Voice enables you to hear exactly when you press the home button. It'll tell you that you pressed the home button. It'll tell you which sonar mode you're in. And now you can also, with Sunu Voice, use the device as a talking watch if you want, as well as then access our menu of applications. We've added a phone finder and tracker app that allows you to find your phone once it's paired up with the Sunu Band. You can quickly activate it by pressing and holding the home button, and it'll start searching for your phone. And that's a lot of folks really like that one. They find it super useful. We've added the Compass app, which enables you to utilize the Sunu Band as an actual compass and know if you're facing north, south, east, or west. It provides you dual feedback, so feedback with vibrations. So if you're facing north, you get constant vibration. If you're facing south, you get a staccato sensation. As well as with audio, it can supplement that, giving you the cardinal direction via audio feedback. We've added an activity tracker that was recently through some user feedback. A lot of folks were asking about an activity tracker. We built a very simple one, but with plans to improve it and expand upon it based on what we hear from our community. And then we've leveraging again on the voice feedback. We've created what is called proximity voice, so that the person, when they're on the sonar mode, they can hear exactly how far away they are to an obstacle. So if it's 3 feet or 2 meters, 3 meters, 4 meters, the device can actually give you that audio cue in terms of distance.
So for those people who are interested in the Sunu Band, where can they find you guys online?
Sure, they can find us at sunu.com, or they can reach out to me directly at Fernando at sunu.io. So that's Fernando, Fernan, D as in dog O, at Sunu, SUNU.io. That's how they can reach us, and they can check us out on Facebook. Click like. We put out a lot of videos and content on Facebook, so we can please share that. And we're always publishing new material there.
Perfect. Fernando, I want to thank you again for coming on and talking to us about the new updates. And let's do this again once you guys come up with some new stuff coming down the pipe.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate being on AT Banter, guys. Have a wonderful day.
Fernando,
Thanks, you
take
too.
care. Cool. Wow, man. So they've come a ways in a year, eh?
There's a lot of new functionality built into the Sunu Band. Yep. Gonna have to get out there and shoot some video.
I feel like they got really lucky too, because I feel like they're hitting on 3 real hot topics right now, which is echolocation is very popular, haptics is an evolving field right now, and wearables.
Yeah, and I wonder though, how many people. There are definitely people who like having a dedicated, watch on their wrist instead of having to pull their phone out all the time to check the time or check their GPS or stuff like that. But haptics has been around, like you said, since the 60s. And we've had haptic shoes, we've had haptics in canes. Just wondering, what or where the holy grail is going to be, or what the product's going to be that really just puts haptics over the edge. The Sunu Band is great. You
know what I think? Well, I mean, my opinion is, and we talked to them about, I don't know, a year and a half ago, but there's a company that was trying to incorporate haptics into touchscreens.
Yes, that's right.
And make tactile touchscreens. I feel like if they can figure that out, that could be the next big thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I listen to multiple podcasts, and I still hear people talking about they don't use their touchscreen laptop because they just don't need to reach up and touch the screen. They can do everything from the mouse or keyboard.
It's true.
So, how many people are actually reaching up and touching their touchscreens? But again, maybe like you say, if there's haptics in it or tactile feedback of some sort, it would give us visual representations of, maybe a graph.
Right.
Maybe a tactile map up on a screen.
Yep.
Right, of your neighborhood or whatever. So there's definitely a place for it.
Yeah, there's a ton of potential, and as Fernando said, it's the ability to make it into smaller and smaller components that's really bringing it about and really making it a really viable solution right now, because they can just pack it into these small devices.
Yep.
And really fine tune the haptics as well. The fact that it has, edge detection and it can detect doors and stuff, that's huge. Hey, Ryan.
Yeah, Rob.
Where can people find us?
They can find us online at atbanter.com.
Yeah, you can also drop us an email if they so desire. Just kidding. It's cowbell at atbanter.com.
That's right.
Much easier email to remember.
That's right. And it's legit. None of this Gmail stuff anymore.
I told you I cough.
Scurvy dog.
No, I've just been phlegmy the last few days. I really don't think I'm getting sick. It's just, I don't know what's going on with me.
Yeah, it's probably something with the hernia.
It's broken.
It's broken. He's a broken toy.
Yeah. Can hardly wait till I get 3-4. They say the recovery for this is like at 3 weeks I'm supposed to be about at 80%.
Oh yeah.
And then about 6 weeks you're kind of back at 100%. So
All right, so hang in there, audience, for another 4 weeks, and we'll finally get this thing going properly.
that's right. Expect some whining to take place.
That's right. Maybe we just need to play with wine.
This it's day 15 for me. So,
Yep.
and I'm already back in the guitar dungeon. My doctor would probably tell me I should be at least another week on the couch, but I'm
No, I think that's what
dedicated-
you're telling yourself.
dedicated podcaster that I am.
Journalist.
I braved the elements.
That's right. Well,
Braved the snow.
speaking of elements, there's more snow in the forecast.
I know.
Yeah, it's
That's
crazy.
what I hear. Yeah, I should get out of here.
Yeah. So anyway, they can also find us on Facebook, Twitter,
Instagram.
Instagram.
All right, that is going to about do it for us. Thanks so much for listening in, and we will see everybody next week.
This podcast has been brought to you by Canadian Assistive Technology, providing low vision and blindness solutions across Canada. Find us online at www.canastech.com. That's CANASSTECH.com. Or call us toll free at 1-844-795-8324. For all your assistive technology servicing needs, call Chaos Technical Services at 778-847-6840 or find them online at chaostechnicalservices.com. Music provided by bensound.com.
Whoa, look at that. Master of the one take.